Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Red Room. Today we are getting back to our overview videos. We have shown most of our red books, but we haven't really done separate overviews. So we're going to start today with Savage Swords.
Yes, so Savage Swords, even we did, even if we did show it before, we showed the
Mhm.
previous version, not the updated one. So
Also that.
yeah, there are some differences, of course, not just the art, but some other stuff. Okay, so these overviews will focus on what differs in each game from the Red Core Book. The Red Core Book is free. That's the core rules for all the Red games. Um, Naturally, there are small differences between each of the games and the generic rules. So in each video, we'll cover archetypes and other things that change. The
Yes,
link
because if we're going to show everything, the video would be too long.
long, yeah, then we'll bore you to death. So the links will be in the description where you can find the books. In this case, Savage Swords, there are different options. You can buy the full book on Lulu, or or you can also find divided into. In Amazon, it's the only option, and I'm talking about physical books only.
Mhm.
In digital, the book is only available as a full book. But in paper format, you at Amazon you will have to find you'll have only the option of two different books. So one is the rule book for the game master, of course, and the other one is the actually not the rule book, the setting book for the game master, and the rule book for the game master, and also if you want to have the players want to have it themselves. So in the case of Amazon, it has to be because it's a very large book, so it wouldn't they wouldn't allow it there. Lulu is more flexible in that, so the full book is there, and also the two separate versions. Okay, so
We're
let's
going to
start.
show the full book because we're not going to show two.
Yeah, two different books would be taking this to probably longer, and the content is all here. So to begin, Seven Swords is a sword and sorcery game. As all red games, it's what we call OSR compatible because most of it is OSR. The fact that it doesn't, none of these games have character levels, might be considered by some to be a non-OSR choice. So that's what they call it. You can uh, use it with different other games, different other, and I am talking about OSR games, of course, because they are actually compatible. If you want to add character levels to this game, you can also do that. Uh, it would probably be easier to use Redshift, which has character levels, and which is also pretty much close to Red as it can get. Okay, so besides that, um, about attributes and skills, this is all similar to other Red games. In case of origin and life paths, you have more than usual because the world of Savage Swords is pretty much developed in this game. Not all red games have large settings. Some have no setting at all. And in this case, there is a setting, and the setting is I'm not
The
going to
full
call it.
world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fully developed, and there are some. So the concept is the same as Conan's world. There are different civilizations, and each one is inspired by a real Earth civilization. In Savage Swords, they are not the same as in Conan, of course, but the concept is pretty similar. So, origin and life path, which is one of the first things you rule to know your character's background. In this case, you have more options because there are different.
It will vary depending where from you decide your character will be.
Yes, exactly. And so, in this case, you have much more tables than usual for this. Now, archetypes. This is a full red game. There are games that we call micro red. Those have summarized rules. So the rules are all there, but they are summarized. No, not many examples. The descriptions are less wordy, and usually the archetypes, the skills, the perks and drawbacks are also reduced in number. So you'll have about 3, 4, 5, 6 archetypes, and the skills are also fewer skills. In this case, no, it's a full red game, and so you have a bunch of archetypes. Also, in this case, same thing as before, as in the origin, there are many different civilizations and countries, and the archetypes cover that.
There are several different types of warrior. Right? It's
Yeah,
where you're showing depending of where you come from. The
yeah.
same with the others.
And the specifics of the style of. In this case, we're talking about warriors. So there are different styles of warriors, and so this covers in the nuke fits, for example, and also the starting health points, which is also something that varies in red games. In this case, unlike the horror games where health equals toughness, in this case it doesn't, of course, because characters have to survive. Well, they are supposed
They
to
don't
survive.
have, but
Yeah,
it's better if they do.
they need more chances to survive
Yes.
than in horror games. So that means that toughness is also always there's always something that you added to it, a die roll and a number, and depending on the archetype, it will be a small or a big advantage. So for combat types, you'll have more toughness than scholars, for example, as it would be obvious. So about skills, this is the common thing in every red game. You have a description of a skill. Uh, in this case, prerequisites, because in this case there are prerequisites, and then what means each skill level 1 to 5, and a few specializations as examples. Okay, so perks and drawbacks is also the same thing as in all red games. You have one free perk. If you want to have more perks, you can add one drawback per each extra perk beyond the first one. Then our alignment alternative. In this case, we have two different ones. One is a general one that you can use for any kind of character, and there's another one which is more specific to religious characters. So, Path of Honor Infamy is the one that any character can use. In this case, there's also a little bit more detail going into this than in other games. There are also wanted levels connected to your level of infamy, and also examples of what reputation and what infamy can.
Well, they can impact.
Yeah, in social interactions, and so depending on the level of what you are in the path. So from plus 30 to minus 30, reactions will be different. And then there's the path of virtue and sin. This is for, as I said before, religious characters. They don't have to be necessarily priests, but people who take religion seriously. And some of the archetypes are very religious in its origin. So I thought this was an addition.
Even some of the warrior types, right? The
Yeah,
tiny needs.
yeah,
Was it, for example, the temple guards that you were showing
yeah,
me? It should be a religious type.
yeah. Some warriors are religious warriors, holy warriors. Okay, acquisition
Or
rules
unholy. Sorry.
or unholy. Yeah, acquisition rules is the same thing as usual. Of course, you have a number that you can roll on, and instead of bookkeeping the the money, but there's also an alternative included in this game for currency instead of the acquisition rules because some people don't like it. I prefer. Maybe in this case, it would be better to have a currency version, being a fantasy game. So there are certain games that I think that perhaps currency is better than
Hmm.
I've started adding the conversion to currency in more games lately. Doesn't mean that all will have it, but at least
Hmm.
the ones that we feel that should have it, they will have it. Okay, so combat is pretty much the same, except there are techniques, weapon techniques, and this is not all games have this. Actually, quite the opposite. Most games do not have this. It can be too much detail, I guess, but for a fantasy game or even for an historical game, it might
Hmm.
be. So what is this? Well, basically, there are techniques that any character trained in melee combat can have. There are advanced techniques that require another more than two or more than three levels in melee combat, and there are certain styles that are specific to certain style of characters. So, for example, shield combat style, which soldiers, city guards, and other discipline warriors have. This is just examples. Of course, you can other characters can have different types of advanced styles. We have developed dueling rules, which
Which also makes sense in this case, in this type of
yeah,
game.
damage and healing is pretty much the same thing. Of course, when you get to the diseases and drugs and all that, there are things that are specific to the setting. There are naval combat rules, which can be useful in this kind of game, and mass combat rules as well. Usually, our games don't have this kind of stuff because it doesn't. They don't need it. Domain rules also, of course, they are simplified. They are very streamlined, but they are here. Fear and Madness is something that exists in all red games, and it also exists here. Now, it might feel strange for a fantasy game to have Fear and Madness rules, but on the other hand, this is, as you already know, a Conan-esque game, so magic is an horrifying thing, and
Yes, dark and scary.
yeah, so the use of magic requires the existence of fear and madness, even if you don't want to use it in the current way of if your character is confronting a supernatural entity. Maybe you'll just decide not to roll it, but you will need it for uh, for the effects of magic, not just in the magicians themselves, but also when they attack people with their weird magic. Carousing activities are also detailed here. There's a bunch of different types of magic. Um, they work more or less the same as in other red games, though there are different types work different ways. So you have necromancy, you have eldritch sorcery, you have shamanic magic, and you also have religious magic, which is holy magic, which is a little bit different than the others. Because you are not using your own power, you're using basically it's like performing miracles. Your character is not doing the miracle himself, he's channeling the divine powers. So they work in different ways. Okay, I'm
In
not
this
going.
case, also makes sense that you have a full world, so in different places they will use different types of magic, right? Because they tie in with religion, or they can tie in.
Yeah, and that for, even in the case of holy magic, there are different kinds of holy magic. Different religions have access to this power, so you'll have to adapt it depending on the character. I'm going to run through this because there may be some illustrations that should be shown. If you have been paying attention, probably you noticed that a lot of the illustrations are stock art, um, but there are also many that were commissioned specifically for this game. Okay, besides magic, there's also alchemy, um, which works in the same way as it does in other red games,
Mhm.
and divination, which, if I'm not mistaken, is this is the only game that does divination, or maybe I'm wrong. I'm not really sure. I can't
I don't think.
remember having divination in any other game. No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, now this is a very long section because obviously this being a no matter if it's OS or OSR compatible, that's the same for this. You will need generators. So you have generators for a bunch of different things. It starts with a city generator for different tables for different places in the geographic places in the setting. And you have ancient structure generator. There are no dungeons here, but there are labyrinths and crypts and fortresses and other stuff. And then, uh,
Adventure.
even more important, an adventure generator and with so several steps as usual in our games. An NPC generator as well with names because in this case they are needed. Um, Names from different civilizations in the game, and then very detailed tables for random encounters. That was something that some people have probably found lacking in Wretched Bastards. The random encounter tables were not that developed. These ones are. You have random encounters for very different types of places. So it starts with caravan trails and trade routes, and then you have well trodden roads, and then secondary paths, and then capital cities, and so on. So large cities, small towns and villages, desert wastes, and it keeps going. And now, as in all games, there's an adversary section where you'll find stats for the most common types of NPCs, but also animals and supernatural creatures or monsters. And after this, it starts the world of Savage Swords,
Setting.
the setting part. Um, so I'm not going to. Sorry, I'm not going to be going in a deep dive in the setting because there's lots of content here.
Yes, because we have a section for each country.
Yes. So let's start just by saying this is basically the continents. So the Western lands, which is I'm not going to call it Europe. It's not Europe, but this version of Europe, and then there's the Eastern lands, of course. There's a list here of nations, so you can see these are all further detailed in the book.
For East Africa, just the lions.
This is also added. This was also added. The quick reference guide was added in the update because it probably makes it easier for you to have a shorter reference with the most important things here. So, for example, I'm just going to show this because instead of showing uh, the rest of this in detail, so you have the name of the kingdom or republic or whatever else it's called, the capital of it, the ruler, so the name and the title, deities, where it's described what kind of religion is the most common there, dress, so most common kinds of clothing used, food, most common foods there, and leisure, so what people do uh, when they're not working. Okay, so this is the very long description of all the places with different levels of detail. Not all regions are detailed the same way. I'll say that probably Europe is more detailed than the yeah, Europe is more detailed than the rest of the.
That's
So
very racist.
these are yes, these are the civil. So it's not called Europe, of course, but the Western lands are the civilized lands. Um, Even though not all regions of the Western lands are civilized in generic way. So there are certain places that are not really that civilized, but in comparison to Corfu. Okay, so let's go a bit ahead and okay, so still going, almost finished.
It's a big book. It's a big
It,
setting.
yeah. This one here that I'm scrolling through now, it's called Valorian, and it's the most detailed one. As you can see, a great part of the commission work was for this part here because there are images for illustrations for the kings or emperors or
And
whatever.
since you're browsing, I'm also going to say that part of this is the description of places, characters, and plot hooks, right?
Exactly. Different places have different sub entries about military and economics. Sometimes the military is not has not a lot to say about it. Sometimes it's the economics that are more important. So it depends. The level of relevance given to each part is different according to uh, the kingdoms. Okay, so we covered all of those pages for the kingdoms. Now this is kind of a game mastering hints, I guess, about this world, history of suffering. So it details all the nasty stuff that is happening in this setting. This should give you not just information about the setting, but also ideas to use these themes in adventuring. It covers stuff like drugs, magic, debauchery, and slavery, of course. Those themes that cannot be talked
Sure.
about. Yes, different types of inequalities and warfare, and it includes also a an adventure called March of the Damned, which actually is about slavery. The characters start as slaves, so that's
And
the
then you ask for historical, how do you say it? Retribution?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So the characters
That's the
have
whole point of the adventure.
characters. Yes, exactly. So the characters have been captured by slavers, and well, they can escape. They can kill all the slavers. They can escape, kill the slavers, and perhaps help other slaves that are accompanying them. Also, other things because there are some other plot hooks that you can follow through after finishing this. Okay, so this is the appendix. This is where the acquisition to currency conversion is. This is where you can find it. So this is, as I said, this is something that I've been adding to some of those other games. Final Frontier is one now. It's also included in the Red Core book. This one is also in the Red Core book. Um, so you have price lists if you prefer to spend your money on stuff, and there's also a map which did not exist in the first version. I mean, there was a map, but
But it wasn't as detailed.
not this map.
It
It
is.
was a different map, and it was much less detailed. So here you can find the most important cities, all the kingdoms, and it's also a grid map, so you can also use it to find distances. And there's another list after the map, very short one about what each place is, so you don't have to
You have to go back to the beginning.
So if you are just looking at the map, you can immediately see which place is what and what you can find there. Obviously, just a very summarized description. And reference of tables. That's something that was also added because some of the play testers asked for it. Yeah, it's useful to have it. And obviously the character sheet, and that's it. We've showed you.
It was quick. We were able to cover it in less than 30 minutes.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Maybe
yes.
but we are improving. So, if you were interested in Savage Swords, well, I think this now has given you some more information about what you'll find, what you can find inside. Not too much detail about everything, about the rules and all that, but the main purpose was to show you the inside of the book. Because it was changed, even though people have already did reviews and all that, but not always. Sometimes the people reviewing don't show you the inside of the book. Sometimes I show you just one or two pages. Sometimes I show you a little bit more, but still, we've scrolled down through almost.
Yeah, I think it's good so people know and get a good picture of the type of content that they have. And
layout, illustrations, and how much of the content there's in tables and text.
And I was going to say, remember again that in this case, it's a big book. If people are just interested in the setting, or they can pick the player's guides.
No.
The upset. Sorry.
Well,
Yes.
the setting, you buy the setting book. If you want rules, you buy the rule book.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in this case, yeah, you have that option. For the digital, you don't have the option, but I don't think you need it. That's the price.
Yeah, I mean the problem is the size of the book. With print on demand is such a large book that yes, it gets expensive and probably not very easy to browse.
Yeah. So, but in digital format, the price is relatively inexpensive, as most of ours are, I think. Of course, in print on demand, no, it's not. It's not cheap. But we only get exactly the same thing, or in the case of Amazon, less than we get from selling the digital. So we can't make it cheaper in paper because it's the cost of printing. Okay, so I hope this gives you some information you might have wanted or you didn't.
It makes you buy the book. That's what I hope.
Yes, hopefully it will convince you that you want to spend money in this. And as I said, you will find the links in the description. We'll be doing more of these videos in the next weeks.
So see you next time.
Bye bye. See you next time.
Bye bye.